I've had some experience with people with financial conflict of interest and trying to set them straight in the past, and they have a way of bending their perspective to fit their financial interests. So my concern is that Trump, in his mind, is always going to assume that he's making policy decisions based on what's best for the United States, but his decisions will be unduly influenced without him even being aware that they are.
Let me tell you, for a person who's coming into this with good faith and the best of intentions, it is very hard to resist subtle temptations from a financial conflict of interest. It's easy for people to persuade themselves that what's good for their stock portfolio is good for America. That's when you're coming in with the best of intentions. That's why we have the phrase conflicts of interest, because it implies that the person is fighting hard to maintain a public interest but is tempted by a private interest. With President Trump, I'm not even sure he's coming in with good faith and that he really even sees a conflict. Now, to the credit of Rex Tillerson, he divested all of his stock in ExxonMobil. And while there are many other things you might say about Rex Tillerson, what you can't say is that he is making decisions because of ExxonMobil stock that he holds now. The director of the Office of Government Ethics, which is a federal agency, put it really well. He said,
"It's important to understand that the president is now entering a world of public service. He's going to be asking his own appointees to make sacrifices. He's going to be asking our men and women in uniform to risk their lives in conflicts around the world. So no, I don't think divestiture is too high a price to pay to be the president of the United States of America."
Donald Trump came out, had the press conference, and said, my lawyer said I don't have to follow any of this, but I'm so generous, what I will do for you is I will hand it over to my sons and just not talk to them about it. What's the issue there?
He knows what his business holdings are. He knows if a decision he makes about Turkey, which is a very sensitive country, it's a U.S. ally, but it's in the Middle East, and our relations with it are sometimes up and sometimes down. He knows whether it's going to affect Trump Towers Istanbul, and he knows that with every country he deals with and every business operation.
The idea of limiting direct communication about the business is wholly inadequate. That's not how a blind trust works. There's not supposed to be any information at all. Here, too, his attorney said something important today. She said he'll know about a deal if he reads it in the paper or sees it on TV. That wouldn't happen with a blind trust. In addition, the notion that there won't be new deals doesn't solve the problem of all the existing deals and businesses. The enormous stack of documents on the stage when he spoke shows just how many deals and businesses there are. This isn't the way the presidency has worked since Congress passed the Ethics in Government Act in 1978 in the immediate aftermath of the Watergate scandal. Since then, Presidents Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama all either established blind trusts or limited their investments to non-conflicting assets like diversified mutual funds. This means OGE directors could always point to the president as a model.
The Environmental Protection Agency is considering, or has long been considering, different ways of regulating wetlands. Trump owns golf courses. And his decision on this, if it comes to a presidential decision, or even if it doesn't, if the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency knows what Trump is going to want, it's one thing to say that, it's a Republican administration, they're going to follow certain Republican policies, that's the way politics works. But it's an entirely different animal to say that he is going to dictate policy or suggest policy or even have it be known what his policy desires are based on how it's going to affect his golf courses.
I've noticed that people who somehow get it in their heads that their own financial interests are somehow, that there's no moral or ethical or legal reason why they should put those aside for the common good, it tends to spread. So you have one person at the top. In this case, you have a person who's saying financial conflict of interest is something, I want you to look the other way, and in return, I'll look the other way when you have a financial conflict of interest. So then it creates all of these unholy allegiances, and then what happens is once people have something to hide, and then there are whistleblowers, or there are government ethics officers, there are people who are saying, no, that's not right, then they start to use bullying means, right? Because they have a gang of people who have financial conflict of interest and each is covering for the other. And then they start to say, listen, if you don't quiet down about this, this is what we'll do. This is how we can turn the screws on you. And if we want to, we can just replace you with someone who will play ball. And when I heard the rumblings coming from Congress. I think it was Jason Chaffetz, directed at Walter Shaub. That really sent a chill down my spine because corruption has a way of corroding the container in which it is held and then spreading.
I think that's absolutely right, and we've seen that happen in other democracies. We saw it happen in Italy with Silvio Berlusconi, who was a figure that many people say presaged Trump by owning TV stations and other businesses while he was the prime minister. And it's actually characteristic of Russia now, where everyone is in on it, and don't be a sucker and try and be clean because everybody is on the take. And that's not what we want the United States of America to become.
The Supreme Court has written that a conflict of interest is, and I'm quoting here, an evil which endangers the very fabric of democratic society, for a democracy is effective only if the people have faith in those who govern, and that faith is bound to be shattered when high officials and their appointees engage in activities which arouse suspicions of corruption. The court cited, and I'm quoting again, the biblical admonition that no man may serve two masters, a maxim which is especially pertinent if one of the masters happens to be economic self-interest. Justice Scalia warned us that there would be consequences if a president ever failed to adhere to the same standards that apply to lower-level officials. The sheer obviousness of Scalia's words become apparent if you just ask yourself one question. Should a president hold himself to a lower standard than his own appointees?
Do you accept my characterization that what you're doing is you're preparing the groundwork for such a time, hopefully not one where people lose lives, but one where the sometimes fleeting attention span of the American people ends up getting focused?
Well, I think we need to start the investigation now. We have enough of a basis now to launch an investigation. This is not a fishing expedition. We know already that he's receiving ongoing foreign payments. There's other provisions of federal law and the Constitution that we have reason to believe he may be in violation of as well. When we start the investigation, we'll turn up even more. I don't have any expectations that this is going to come to a full vote in the House and an impeachment trial in the Senate within the next 3 days. This is going to take some time, but we need to start now, because if we wait and sit on our heels until some explosive revelation comes out, it will be too late.
Too late, right. Is it possible that the Senate Intelligence Committee investigation could expand to include his financial dealings with other countries other than Russia?
Well, I think the investigations by various committees of the House and the Senate, as well as other federal agencies, including the Federal Election Commission, which is investigating a complaint that we at freespeechforpeople.org filed.
Right, because a foreign government isn't supposed to be able to...
A foreign government is not permitted to spend any money to influence an American election. We have evidence that the Russian government did. And if an American campaign coordinates with that foreign government, it's also a violation. All of these investigations can feed into each other and turn up information that maybe wasn't anticipated, but that is relevant to all of them, and I think they'll multiply as time goes on.